no, I just swallowed a peanut. Hi, Neal Brennan, Blocks Podcast. Guest today is a guy I've known 20 years.
Yeah, easily.
Wasn't that easy.
Very easy.
Well, I didn't meet you. It's not 20, it's 19. Met you in 05.
It's true.
Maybe 06. So it's 18. So it wasn't easy.
Right.
In fact, you're a
Wow.
liar.
Jeez, wow.
They've proven themselves a liar.
Already. Right
Met
out of the
him
gate.
when he was making Human Giant. Human Giant, I would like to note, I wasn't allowed to direct. Do you remember that?
Well, I mean,
I know it wasn't you guys,
Yes.
but we know who it was. But it was a funny. I had been nominated for an Emmy for directing. I wasn't allowed. They said send a resume. Pretty great.
There was a lot of issues like that.
Yeah. Then he did The League on FX. He was on Black Monday on Showtime, and he's got a juggernaut podcast called How Did This Get Made with Jason Mantzoukas and your wife, June Diane Raphael, and Jason Mantzoukas, who saw it Whole Foods 12 years ago, told him about goji berries, which I'd never had. I was like, you try goji berries? I'd never had them.
Yeah.
And then we both tried them, and they're awful.
They're very, very hard raisins. They're almost
but they're not hard's not the right word for them.
Yeah.
There's something, it's like, what are you, goji berries?
To me, it's like a grape nut and a raisin have merged. There's something about
which
that.
Could be fun.
Maybe.
It's not.
No. I mean, sometimes I'll put them in like an acai bowl or something like that,
Okay. If you're doing a photo shoot of an acai bowl.
Yeah, you got to put it in there.
And he's got a new book called Joyful Recollections of Trauma, which obviously came to the right place. Paul Scheer, everyone. Paul Scheer.
Neal, I am so excited to be here. I actually thought of you a lot in writing this book because I feel like you do this thing that I don't think many people do, which is like you in your work, especially in your stand-up, in your shows.
The serious, half serious, third series.
But I think it's an interesting thing of like being able to really go there and exist in a moment that is real, but also remember my job is to entertain you.
Yes.
And we can do both.
Yes.
And I feel like that is something that I strove for in the book, but also something that people they always go like one way or the other. I feel like it's undercutting it or just like, I'm going to bum you the fuck out.
Yeah. And it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. I mean, with 3 mics, I like split them up.
Yeah. But to create a picture.
Yeah. But yeah. Well, that's what I was reading about the book. I had curiosities, meaning my curiosity was mostly about because it's about basically your parents not being great at parenting.
Yeah. Yes and no. Right. Like, I think the whole idea of the book came out of these stories I would tell at How Did This Get Made? Right.
Yeah. Give me some of those. Give me some snapshots.
Yeah. So I would talk about these moments in my life and I would tell them like, oh my gosh, my grandma told me never to open the door because there's a rogue butcher in town and he was kidnapping kids. And the way that they caught him was a mom went to the butcher and she got some chopped meat. And when she came home, she didn't see her son around and she started making a little chopped meat burger. And as she put the burger into the frying pan, the burger said, "Mommy." And that was how they caught the butcher. And I was like, right? You guys heard stories like that.
Think we've all been there.
And Jason and June always look at me like, whoa, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, oh, that never happened to you? Like, and I think I would tell these stories about my childhood without any thought. I was like, oh yeah, I had a crazy Halloween.
That's the kind of thing, like you have kids now and you talked in one of the articles about how you basically, that's like there's a firewall there.
Yeah.
You can understand like with the grandma thing.
Yeah.
You kind of get what she's doing.
100%.
It's like, the whole Hansel and Gretel's like all like that
that's
entire, like that's their whole thing.
Right. Got a witch.
Yeah. They're eating and wolves and like some of that's or R.L. Stein, any of those things. So what I'm saying is, are there worse ones?
Oh, yeah. So yes, but I guess I was kind of saying like,
you were getting to it and I tried to force it.
No, don't worry about it. I like the idea was like, I would tell these stories from my childhood in a really like kind of joyful, innocent way. And that was where the title came from, like these joyful recollections of trauma. Because Jason and June would often be like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. And then people would be like, oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. And there's a, yeah, okay, great. And that idea of like wanting to write a book and then actually writing a book are two different things.
Yeah.
And when I first sat down to start writing, I was kind of just doing what I was doing on How Did This Get Made, telling these like funny anecdotes, things that I knew that were interesting about my life, but I would go into it. But I realized really quickly, well, I'm not actually telling like the real story. Like because when people said to me like, well, that's a dark story about your grandma telling about this, I'm like, oh, that's nowhere near as dark as what I went through. Like that's light, right? And I'm where you are. And so then when I sat down to write, I was like, I guess I have to like talk about it all. And really what the book is about, and in a lot of ways, is sort of going through this like tremendous physical abuse by my stepfather, who was this guy who was a truck driver for a supermarket chain who, you know, wore like a knife on his belt, you know, always in cowboy boots. This guy who kind of looked like he had always getting over a hangover, right? And there was moments with him that were incredibly gregarious. And then there were moments with him that were insane, you know, like whether it was like throwing a pitchfork at me, like to, you know, stab me in the back, you know, or, you know, locking me in above a barn in a hayloft, you know, whatever these things were, you know, just like brutal fights and just this kind of intense life that I was living that no one knew. My parents were divorced. And so it became this, like, I would go to my dad's for the weekend and it would kind of have a break from it and then go back into it.
And you couldn't tell him.
I did. And I
was
think,
like, well, I'm scared of him too. He's fucking carries a knife.
Well, I mean, you know, and this is the kind of crazy thing. I think, you know, we have so many more tools at our disposal.
Yeah.
Now, right. And I don't know if everybody knew how to deal with
emotional pitchforks we have now.
Well, look, I mean, because I went to therapy with a family therapy at one point. Back then. And, you know, therapists said like, what goes on in this house? And I gave her a list. I was like, this happens, this happens, this happens.
Them, with your mom and stepdad in the room.
In the room. And she stopped me midway through and she was like, okay, we got it. Like, and she talks to my stepfather and she's like, look, if any of this ever happens again, like you don't need, like she's basically saying, you've proven your point. Like, I don't even need to hear more. Like, this is bad. She's like, if anything happens again, I'm calling the police. I'm going to intervene. And, you know, and for a couple of days, it was good. You know, things had mellowed out. And then a couple of days later, it was back to the way it was. And I was so excited because it's like, we're going to go back to therapy.
Yep. We're going to tell her.
Yeah.
Cops are coming. Let me guess, you never went back.
We went back. And the therapist said, okay, I'm going to give you one more chance to my stepfather. Like, I'll give you one more chance. You
told her again.
Yeah, I said
he did this week.
Yep.
Do you remember the things that were that week?
I don't remember that week, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, and like, this is the kind of weird thing about growing up in like an abusive household. It doesn't necessarily, like, I can't tell you, like, there's an accumulation of things, but it was just as regular as like, what did you have for dinner on that week?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, that was one bad weekend. It was just a consistent weird thing. And, you know, I had, you know, and these are like the darker parts of the book, but this is like really the moment where, as a kid, I felt completely cut off because this therapist who's supposed to protect me is like, well, one more chance. And then we never went back to therapy. Neighbors called CPS on our house because they saw me out in the street in my underwear because he locked me out in the middle of the winter. And I was like, I couldn't get into my own house. He locked me out.
How old were you?
I was, this all takes place probably before I was in 7th grade, you know? So, you know, CPS comes to the house and they interview my mom and my stepdad together, which is probably shouldn't do that. And they never talked to me and they just left and there was nothing done. So a lot of times when people go like, oh, well, you tell your dad, you tell your mom. I did, yes. But they, like, we're talking about CPS and the family therapist doesn't know what to do. Like, and I think my dad felt this same thing of like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
maybe if I step up.
It's such a pain in the ass, the wrong word, but it's like when there's a corrupt cop.
Right.
We're like, fucking, what do we have to do?
Well,
what?
Well, this is the thing. You have this moment where you're like, you got to play by these rules. Because I could also see my dad, and this is something that like my dad and I've like talked about and talked around, And it was like, maybe if he steps up, he would get cut off. And my dad did step up one time. There was like a moment where my dad
cut off from you.
Yeah. Right. And my dad one time did confront my stepdad, and it became this like drag out fight in my house.
Physical fight.
I could come home from apple picking with my dad. Having a good day. It was coming home on a Sunday, and we were, transition of that.
Yeah.
And,
dividing up the apples.
Of course, got to take some of the apples. My dad would take some of those apples. And so many apples, too many apples. Oh God, why would he eat that many apples? All of a sudden, my stepdad was sitting in his chair. I felt there was an energy off. Like maybe I walked in on my stepdad and my mom having a fight. I don't know, right? And he's like, says to my dad, he's like, you come into my house, you don't fucking say hello to me, and then picks up his coffee mug and throws it at my dad's head. My dad ducks out of the way. My stepdad gets up, and it becomes this like physical fight where now the only weapon I have is a bag of apples, and I'm just like, foom, like I'm throwing him like I am a major league pitcher, just trying to.
Depending on who's winning and who you're gonna have to live with.
Well, I'm just trying to stop it.
I might have to live with my stepdad.
Well, like as a kid, I don't know what to do. You
literally start throwing apples.
Yeah, at them as they're fighting, because they're like
at both of them.
Yeah, because they're brawling, and I don't know. I'm trying to stop it, right? I'm just trying to get in the middle of it.
Yes.
And.
By the way, throwing apples is more than Child Protective Services or the therapist did.
True.
Just FYI.
Yeah, true. And that's like a part of this journey in a way. It was like I realized when no one was going to stand up for me or be there for me in that way, what I could do is stand up for myself physically. And that's when I became a fighter with not only this man in my life. I would fight back. I learned that would be like where my power is to fight him. So he had.
Where did you start fighting?
In the house.
You would fight him.
I would
from
fight
that day
him
forward.
That was like the beginning moment, because he would do a lot of things where, again, I'm telling you, like little chunks, but he would like pin me down on the ground and choke me and do these things to me that were really like intense. And I would take it or call mercy. Like, this is the whole thing. Call mercy, and I'll stop. And I didn't want to call mercy anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And I just kicked him in the dick, like when he was on top of me. And his pain there is like, oh, I have power. I'm getting bigger. I'm getting stronger. And so that became like, then we became really adversarial. And then it was
now you're in 7th, 8th grade?
Before, this is all done by the time I'm out of 8th grade. But by 7th grade, we've left this at this point. So this is all younger than that. But what happens is like that instinct in me, when I felt threatened of fighting, physical fighting, was something that started to linger with me, right? And started to become part of who I was, no matter what. I would take that into high school. I would get into fist fights. I would decimate kids in my school because I am used to fighting a 40-year-old man, right? So, and it wasn't like a fair fight. I remember fighting a kid in a parking lot of my high school, just taking his face and smashing it into a fender of a car until he just stopped, but it was like, but that was the only thing I knew, right? And I think that this book, and I'm telling you more of the serious stuff than the fun stuff, but
that's pretty fun.
Yeah. But I think in looking at the book, it was really like how this kind of world really informed who I was. And then it has been about this like 20-long-year journey.
So your mom finally was like, I got to get you.
We finally were able to escape it.
Did you have to like talk her into it, or was
no?
There
I was too young to do it. So basically, what my mom did, probably one of the most interesting things that happened was this guy, we call him Hunter. Hunter was like a hunter. He was, we raised quail and we have horses. We had horses in our backyard, literally.
Where is this, in New Jersey?
No, Long Island.
Got it.
And so my mom created a fake contest from Field and Stream. He won. So he got this box one day. He's a real idiot too, because I don't think it was that well done. But it was like, oh my gosh, you won this Field and Stream gift package. They're going to go to Montana. You go get the hunt. You get all this sort of stuff. So my mom sent him to Montana,
Bought him a plane ticket.
bought him a plane
This
ticket.
is pre 9/11.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
it was a free for all.
Easy to get on airplanes. You could bring a gun with you on the airplane. You could clean your gun on the airplane.
Though not on 9/11 somehow. Go ahead.
I flew on 9/11 this year. It was packed in the airport.
Yeah,
and we're back. We're
forgotten.
back.
Yeah.
So he goes and thinks he's winning this trip, and the minute he leaves, we're cleaning out the house and we're trying to get out of there. Now, I don't know where the plan kind of fully falls apart, because I think my mom did want to pass baton in a way, because he comes home from that trip on the day the moving trucks are there, and he sees the moving trucks there. And that's like our last moment. It's kind of our like Ocean's 11, Danny Ocean, like kind of tipping his hat, like, you've been bested, and
how long was he in Montana for?
These are like the things I'm a little foggy on. Okay. I would say about a week. It felt like about a week.
Did she have things for him to do, or was it just you're going to go to Montana?
I think those are like the details where I'm like, as a kid, because I really made a conscious choice in writing this book that I didn't want to like interview my mom. I didn't want to interview my dad, because I wanted to tell the version of events that I remember, right? And all to the extent of, right, I don't know exactly the ins and outs of all those moments, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter because he was just off.
Yes.
And also it's like, I can tell you what I saw with my eyes. And once I hear like what my mom and my dad said, well, it's their perspective, and it starts to get a little bit bloody.
Then it's too factual. It's not fun.
Well, you know what it is? It's like, but it's funny, because in talking to them about it, they'll say one thing, and I was like, but I remember
I've always
like
heard,
that.
I know that's the problem with memoirs in general. It's like what you remember is wrong, but then what they remember might be wrong also.
Well, that's why it's like, to me, it was like, this is not about, this is not a trial, right? I'm not like, this book isn't meant to like, examine anything more than myself, right? So I'm looking at these instances that shape me. I know that this and this and this happened. That's really the most important part. And the truth is like, there are things that my parents may think that they did or they didn't do that they don't know. And we get into conversations about it. And she's like, oh, right, I did do that. But their memory has also switched that they haven't, and not to say that I am 100, like that they are wrong all the time. It's just like, it's different perspectives, even as an adult. But he came home and, we had this like moment, and I thought like, oh, this is like, we've won. I wanted to have that moment of like, we've won.
And he's a truck driver, so he could have commandeered.
Oh, he could have gotten right in, just pulled that person right out of the cab, get it. But what he was more worried about was the furniture. He's like, you can't take this furniture. And that's where he made his stand. It was like, and it was emotionless. And he took the furniture that he wanted.
Was it his furniture?
No.
Yep.
But, it's like, again,
sure.
I think it's very like the end of
Small
the jerk.
Price.
Right, it's like I want this and I need this. But the moment that I remember so clearly was like, I had guns too. I was using guns all the time, because that's my lifestyle was that, So I had taken these guns, these big rifles that I had, and we're pulling out of our little like dead end street. And he starts running after the car, and it's like, we're almost there. I'm like, is this going to be the moment? This moment, I'm going to change. I swear to you, I'll change. And he had swear to us we'd change a million times. We ran away a bunch, but just to hotels, to other people's houses. It wasn't like a real thing. This is like a real.
There were no contests. There was no.
Right. We have an apartment. We were going somewhere.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like. Just 2 towns over, but we're going.
That's
somewhere.
fine.
Yeah. But he runs after the car. And my mom slows down, and my heart is just like sinking. I'm like, no, we can't stop, right? This is.
Where's the gun?
In between my legs, 2 of them, like this. And
does he know you have guns?
Yeah, he sees me walk out of the house with my guns. So they're in between my legs. I'm holding them like this. It's a safe way to carry a
I
weapon.
think it's textbook.
Yeah, and my mom pulls down the window to talk to him. And I think he's going to talk to my mom, but he really just wants the guns. And so he grabs at this gun, and I grab at this gun. And now we're having like a tug of war with this rifle over my mom, and
where would the bullets have shot at?
At this point, the bullets would have shot him right in the belly.
Yep.
Now the gun was not loaded.
Yep.
Because I do gun safety now. Like I'm all about gun
Nothing.
safety. But we're struggling with this gun. And my mom just says like, let it go. And I know it's like this, and
Too cute, but like,
yeah, but
that
that's what it
happened.
was. And it was like, and I let it go, and he got that gun, and we just drove off, and that was it. And we got in, and then we left.
Narratively, you still have another gun.
I do have yes, which is a BB gun, not as powerful as right. Sure, could do something. But,
and if anyone would know, it's you. Finally, a resolution that isn't a pain in the butt. Tushy bidets fit on your toilet in under 10 minutes, improving your health and saving you time and money every time you go to the bathroom. This is another one of these things, is all I talk about is bidets. I talk it in personal life. I ask people about it. It's a small talk. It's an item of small talk. Transformed my life. Been in the game about 20 years, give or take, maybe 18 years. I'm the owner of 2 Tushies. Gave one to my girlfriend. Installed it myself. Will, let's show him a clip. Directions here. Hello. I just made myself a Tushy. You feel manly installing it, and then you feel great and effective when you use it, and it's just a better way of, I'm telling you, I don't recommend garbage. I'm recommending Tushy bidets. Instantly improve your health from the bottom up. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code NEAL at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at Hello Tushy, HELLOTUSHY.com with promo code Neal. 10% off. I'm telling you, change your life. Change your life. Change your mind. There's always the new year, new me. New me, who dis, New Year's resolutions, changing, going through the chrysalis, coming out the other side. You know what I'm not changing? Mando whole body deodorant. What do I love about it? It works for me. It's good. It's clean. It smells good. I'm a creature of habit. I eat a salad every day for lunch. I have for like 25 years. Now I use Mando every day. So I got a whole body deodorant. Safe to use anywhere in your body. Anywhere in your body. Anywhere in your body. Name a body part. It's good. Head to toe. Use it anywhere. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes you used to wipe the other day, worked, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack using code NEAL at shopmando.com, SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, boost your confidence from head to toe. Mando.
I think what I didn't realize, because for a long time too, we decided to erase this guy from our life. We were like, we're not talking about this guy. It wasn't in polite. My mom was already divorced. And that was something that, I know it sounds weird to say, but I was the only kid who had a divorced parent in a class. Like that was a rarity. This is like the 80s, late 80s, so it was different, and to have another,
blemish, so to speak.
It was like, we just don't talk. We erased this person from our existence, so much so that like we never talked about him. And when I released this book, my close friend, like one of my closest friends, was like, I never knew this. June, my wife, read the book and was like, I didn't know this and this. We just never talked about it. We just never brought it up. And June knew the grander, like the big picture.
When did you start telling her about it? How deep into the relationship? Do you know what I mean? Because we have like our third date anecdotes.
Yeah, I think for me it was like it kind of crisscrossed with 2 different things. I'll go backwards to go forward and tell you this, because I think what I didn't realize is not talking about this for such a long time, keeping it closed off. I was like not dealing with stuff, and it was fucking up my relationships, my romantic relationships, my personal relationships. My anger was like, I decided, well, I can't be angry anymore because that's bad. So I'll just be always agreeable, and I'll turn my anger down to 0. And then that wasn't good. Right. And I wasn't finding any balance in life. I wasn't trusting anything. Like, I even talked about this thing, like the way my parents got divorced is really interesting, because when I was 3 years old, my parents got divorced, but they decided to, they faked living together until I was 5.
Part of your mother's thing of like contests and situations. Yeah.
But it was this weird thing of like my dad was like leaving when I was going to bed and then coming there before I got to school, or once I remember I walked by, I got up in the middle of the night and I saw in the guest bedroom, like my dad was sleeping in the guest bedroom, and that was weird, as a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, what,
there were a lot of snorers and bad backs.
Well, that was it. It was like, my
days.
mom was like, oh, our bed's broken.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, right. Makes sense. Great metaphor for divorce too. And that was this thing. So I was like, there's like trust issues. There was like relationship issues. There's a lot of issues that I had. And so when I finally met June, my wife, I had finally started to go to therapy in a way where I started talking about it, because I had gotten out of a bad relationship, or I got out of not a bad relationship, but a relationship that wasn't a healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. And we were going to couples therapy together, and she left. And she's like, I'm out of couples therapy, and when this relationship is over. And I was like, got it. And the therapist said, I think you should stay.
Hey,
yeah,
main man, stay. Hang after class.
And I was like, all right, yeah. And that was like really when I started to kind of get in touch with all these things. And this is like a long process, but that was the beginning of it. And so June probably comes in about 3 or 4 years into that process of me like starting to be open with it. So it starts to become something that I'm more comfortable telling, at least like to somebody I'm in a relationship with, like letting them understand who I am a little bit.
How did you couch it before then? It was just like, this is my personality. I don't know how it got this way.
Well, I don't think that anyone even like looked, like I was like, oh, I wouldn't fight with like.
Did you have any suspicions
about myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think I was able to name it. Right. I knew like, okay, angry can't be good. Like I knew.
But you also know enough about just from movies and fucking podcasts, like how psychology works.
Right. But at 20, I didn't. I was a fucking idiot. Right. Like, I mean, and especially then, it's like, I was watching, it wasn't like, I wish I was and like I was enlightened then, or I knew. I knew that I had this thing, but I didn't, in my mind, we got out of it. And so it was okay. Right. And that was like a motto for our whole family. It was like, oh, it's not
how
broken,
did I have questions about how you felt about your mom. Because there's you must have held it against her a little bit, right? At some point, or no?
I didn't really hold anything against my mom, because in many respects, we were in it together.
Yeah.
Right. And again,
how many times have you watched This Boy's Life?
I mean, by the way, that was a movie that spoke to me so much. Right?
When it came out, I told Chappelle to go see it.
Yeah.
He watched it and thought I was kidding.
I was like,
no, dude, this fucking I like DiCaprio because of that.
Yes.
And you know what moment I like? At the end, when they get away and he screams by that like stream.
Yeah.
And I was like, yep, right there.
Oh, that movie like spoke to me in a way that I'd never really experienced. So much so I was like, I got to read more. What was it, John?
Tobias Wolff.
Tobias Wolff.
Yeah.
That was interesting. It's like, I can identify with this character. I can be in this world. But I didn't know. And I think what it was is like, because I had put it out of mind, right? I put it like, we're not talking about him. We got out of it. Yeah. I'm not in it. I pulled myself up. I'm fine. I'm functional.
Did you give your mom credit for leaving? Were you grateful for it?
And I give her, like, I think the thing is like writing this book now as a parent. I have 2 kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. I have so much more empathy for my parents in the sense that I have way more tools than them. We're trying to do right by our kids. We're trying so hard. I know that I don't know what I would do if I heard this about my kids, but I know I would do something. I would do everything I could to.
It is funny though, when you're like, when I have a kid, I'm gonna show them. And my girlfriend has a kid, and I've apologized to my mom.
Yeah.
For criticizing her. So I was like, it's like criticizing someone for their behavior during a hurricane.
Well,
it's like, dude, it's so hard. And I'm not saying you should get with the guy and did it, but she was literally doing her best.
That's really, I think that empathy part, like this book, I think probably came out of me now because I was able to talk about it. And I also worked on it. Like, I didn't want to have kids for a while because I was like, I don't want to, will I lose my shit again? I don't know how to control it. Like I didn't want to even be married. I didn't, like, because of divorce and all these things, like, were these clouds that I've kind of like
wouldn't eat apples.
Yeah. Apples, still love apples. Got to get to that apple.
The whole take nothing against, take nothing away from apples,
But
no
like,
love lost.
But that, I think, that empathy is important. And I feel like the thing that I'm trying to take with what I'm learning from that. So yes, so to answer your question, I never really had anger at my mom. Although when I tell people the story, they're like, "Aren't you mad at your mom?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, because I see us together in it. The story that I'm telling, and very much like I said to you earlier, like I'm telling my story. I'm not telling my mom's story. My mom had her own set of very intense issues with this person. That's not for me. Like I'm not writing her biography, right? And I tried to be very aware of that. Like I'm not trying to analyze my dad. I'm not trying to analyze my mom. They are side characters in my story, and I'm giving you a glimpse of them that is enough that I think allows for their own privacy as they are alive and they have friends, and those friends are going to read this book. Like I was very happy, and that was a conscious choice to be like, you tell your own story. I'm telling mine, and yes, and I think that with my mom, I found her to be an ally. We got out. We did this thing together. Could there have been things better? Sure, absolutely. But I think the biggest difference that I realized between the way they raised me and I raised my kids, and I think it's probably more generational. It's like our parents and their parents probably raised kids about the same, roughly the same.
But I would still argue our parents were better than their parents.
Yes. And I think we're light years ahead of where they are just because we have access to so much more, right? And even just, when there's an issue, I could look at worst case scenario, I can look at a TikTok that can give me some sort of some sort of advice in that world, whether or not it's good, who knows? But I think the thing that I've really taken is like, I just want to make sure I listen to my kids, because in my experience, it was like, if, you're alive, it's you're fine. Like you didn't get hurt. You didn't get, it's like, and that I think it's like, well, yeah, but that's still, I'm still dealing with stuff. Like, just because I'm physically fine, right? This guy, that's my stepfather, Hunter, he never like broke a bone in my body. That doesn't mean that.
But you wished he did.
Oh man, then we could have gone to the hospital. It could have been different things. And it's interesting. It's just different times. And again, like, so when people say you're mad at your mom, you're mad at your dad, I always kind of bring them to the CPS and the therapist. These are the two most equipped people to deal with this, who have no vested interest but just the child's welfare, and they couldn't do the right thing. So how the fuck am I going to say to my parents?
Yeah, and your dad fought him. That's pretty heroic,
right? And I think everyone's just doing their best to get out of it. Now, I will say, with all of that, I look fondly back on my childhood, because that is like a color of the rainbow of my childhood. Yes, like that was going on, and this was going on, and then this was, so it wasn't all one thing. And I feel like that's such an important, I think that's an important part to remember too. It wasn't like,
because you can get caught up. I'm definitely guilty of getting caught up in the like negative shade. And it's like, dude, I had so much positive. It's crazy.
Well, I never doubted my parents loved me. I never had a need for like food or clothes. It's like there are certain.
Well, that one time you were outside.
Yeah, well, but I had clothes inside. They were just inside. they were within reach.
She needed access.
Right. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? It's like there, and so I think that there was a mentality like, hey, you go to school, you have food, you have clothes, like it's okay. Like, like there is, and it's, I remember like my grandma's big statement was, if this keeps on happening, because she saw it, I'm going to take myself out. You won't get to see me, which was like a crazy thing to say. Like my grandma basically saying to her daughter and her daughter's husband, like, guess what? You don't get
I'm
this.
out.
And it's like, well, as a person who doesn't like her anyway, like my stepfather is like, great. That means like the obstacle is gone. Like you're
it's funny,
right? And it's like I'll abandon you, and then you'll realize that like it's such a selfish, weird thing. But in her mind, she's like, I'm offering.
Well,
up
it's also like conflict resolution. Right. She's even worse than protective services, and like she has no training.
Right.
And that's her generation going like, you know what you do.
Well, and I think that like in talking to everybody after this, the book has been out and they've read it, and people didn't know, people suspected things. And I also think I was a kid who I grew up to be this, right? I grew up to be an actor and do comedy, and I talked a lot. And, it's like, oh, well, he's probably exaggerating. Oh, it's probably pushing it, right? It's this. And I think
comedians are healthy.
Right, yeah. But it's like, I think that was like part of it too. It's like, oh, is it really that bad? Is it really that bad?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so. He's exaggerating when he's saying that this happened. But, it's these moments that I think what the book became in a way was wrestling with this like period of my life that I thought like, I'm over it. I'm good. Like when I went to therapy for that first time, I was like, oh, no, but I'm fine. Like I actually am adjusted. I'll go to therapy, but I mean, it was really my girlfriend. That's just her issue. And I'm fine. And it was allowing myself to like grieve, mourn, and even like look at that period. And that had been like, honestly, like a 20-year process. Like from 20 to 40, I'm like dealing with it in different ways, like because different things are activating it.
Yeah.
And so I think the book is really like, that's what the book is. It's a reflection of not my life, not memoir. But it is the trajectory of, starting off as a 3-year-old whose parents are like living this like Truman Show life, going through this abusive part of my life and then escaping that. And then the ripple effects of all of that, because I think the ripples are smaller.
That's what whatever, throw blocks up, however, willy-nilly. Of your blocks, the one that seems to, anger's big.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's connected. Asking for help. You don't ask for help, and also rocking the boat are 3 big ones.
Yeah.
How do you get rid of the anger? Or how do you get rid of the inclination to violence? That I'm interested in that.
This is something that was so interesting to me because I felt like I was the Hulk, right? I would just like turn. And it was so easy to deal with things with violence because it was like I would just, whether it was kicking a wall or punching someone in the face, like I was getting into fights
at a certain point, people must know that you're like this, right?
Yes and no, but I'm also this person that you see here, right?
Yeah.
So it would be like all of a sudden me just going like, bam, right? And and that was, I think, the trick of me. It was sort of like, oh, he's not going to do this thing, and it wasn't like I was getting into fights every day. It wasn't like, oh, he's the it was like I would go back to that Bruce Banner thing. So it was like, oh, what the fuck? And I remember it would just pop up occasionally, and it would be these, not occasionally, but like, I mean, it would like, I went to one school and I got into a really bad fight and I left that school because of that fight in a way.
The bumper or worse?
That was a different fight. That was when I was in 6th grade. Yeah. And the bumper was in high school. But it was like, and what happened a lot of the times was, well, that's Paul. He must have been provoked. Right. So teachers were on my side, so much so that, they would separate us and they'd be like, you must have had your reason. And the truth was I did to a certain extent because I wasn't picking on kids. I wasn't picking on kids. I was picking on bullies. I was like, I would see somebody bullying someone else and I'd be like, fuck you. Or if they picked on me or whatever it was, like I was going after the bigger targets. So also the school was like, yeah, that kid sucks. Like that kid's an asshole. Like, so it was a bit
vigilante justice, but
because I'm like,
you're not, it's still, you're not allowed to. Although I always find it hilarious how many fights there are at school.
Oh, it's crazy
relative to work.
Oh, like that school thing is I think you also don't have any consequences. You don't understand like shit could go bad with a fight, right?
Yeah.
Like, right.
Yeah.
I remember I didn't go to my parents pulled me out of like public school because I had a friend who in the 2nd grade, another kid in the class stabbed him through the hand with a pencil. Right. And it's like, now I'm not saying that kid in 2nd grade was like a violent kid. He doesn't understand like, oh, that will stab, right? Yes. Like that. And so I feel like, anyway, like that was like, we were getting into a lot of these fights. And the moment that I really, it kind of hit me was I had made a crank phone call to
which thing we would do.
We got to do it. We were all over my friend's house and we called this kid who was kind of cool, but also bully. And I called him up and the worst crank phone call ever. I was like, oh, hello, Mrs. So-and-so. I have your son at the police department. Please come down here right away. Click. Right. Anybody in their real right mind, I think, would be like, that seems bullshit. Like, just come to the, what am
Yeah.
I? Yeah. And also, click, right? Yeah. So, that kid came to my house.
Pretty funny cops just called me.
They were really terse and very, very quick.
Yeah.
They barely could even let me talk to my son.
They seem to be having a great time, though.
And he came to my house to fight me the next day. He's like, you called my mom.
After school or on a weekend?
This is on a Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
And he's like, well, now I'm going to have to kick your ass.
Is he bigger than you?
Yeah, like bigger, lankier, like bigger, like taller.
Right. But
like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to Bruce Lee, like that kind of.
Okay,
like,
but you're not, you were like, oh, I welcome this sort of thing?
I was like, okay, let's go in the backyard. And I'm walking in the backyard. And that was the moment in high school. I'm a senior in high school. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm going in my backyard to fight. I became this person that my stepdad was. My stepdad would come home from, with black eyes and a sling. And what happened? Oh, I fell off a thing, or I did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm like, oh, I'm becoming him. And in that moment, walking into the backyard, maybe I was scared, maybe I was overwhelmed, but I was like, I'm gonna have to kick this person's ass, or I'm gonna fight. And I'm in my backyard. I'm like, what am I doing? And I think maybe even being home and knowing my parents were home, it was overwhelming. And that was like when I just apologized. I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. And I started to cry because it was almost overwhelming. We never apologized. No, I was never, like in all these things, we never apologized, right? It was just, that was it. There was no apology. It was like, we move on. And I'm sure he was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this kid's like, we're going to fight. Now he's crying and he's apologizing. And that was a moment where I was like, I can't do this. But when I go to New York City and I'm like in college there, I'm like on the subway and I step on some guy's sneaker and he's like, what the fuck? I'm like, what is it? What? I'm like, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like realizing like, so then I just turned that dial down.
But so when you went to NYU, right?
Yes, I went to NYU.
Did you have those moments of
I only had those moments that like got into a verbal confrontation, like where it would heighten.
But you would normally it's what are you looking at? Right. And then the person stops looking or says nothing.
Right. And then I just walk away. Right.
But you were the guy who was
would engage.
Actually.
But I
knew
that,
question.
And I knew that was, and I think that the moment there before I went to school started to make me go, okay, this is not good. And then when I was in New York, I was like, this is definitely like, I did have
now we're in the big leagues.
Yeah. This is not, I don't want to get into a fight with this guy in the subway. This is not kids. Yeah. There's not even a kid. It's an adult, who will kick my ass. And so then it was like, well, I have to shut it off. I'm just going to shut it off. And it was like it was basically like I just turned this volume down.
How about if it wasn't physical violence or like willing to go there? How were you with conflict resolution? Just with like friends or
I would just
decisions?
roll like, what do you want?
Even before that?
I think at this point, it was like everything in my personality became passive aggressive. No, sorry. Just passive.
Yeah.
Just like, whatever you want to do, I want to do. I think that's the reason why I was in bad relationships. I had no sense of self. What are you doing? I'll do it.
Yep.
And I became like codependent, or not even codependent. I just became this other person.
You lost your hair because a friend of yours started losing his hair.
And then I had to, and that was it. And and that was really, I regret that.
Huge mistake.
Really? Yeah. But there was like, I think that's, and those are the things I wasn't realizing. I was like, okay, I need to get through things. And I think like when you're somebody that comes through that abusive world, you're like, I don't want to rock the boat. So I just didn't rock the boat in anything. And I didn't want to fuck up relationships. I'm like, all right, well, I saw what fighting looks like in a relationship. There was never an urge for me to be violent with my partner.
Yeah.
It was never that. But it was also never to be like, we're going to get into a fight. Like
a constructive,
fights are part of relationships, right? And it's healthy, but it's like I couldn't.
Arthur Miller called it a fruitful conflict.
I like that.
Yeah,
and that's what I feel like I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do that with anyone because I didn't want to be the person. I just wanted to be yes.
Because the way it works, I believe, is like if I acknowledge my needs, that's going to cause conflict,
right? Because
I don't want to be in any conflict, so I am whatever you need me to be.
I need to basically make sure that the boat isn't rocked, and if my needs weighs it down on one side or the other, it's going to rock the boat because it's not. It's just adding another weight to it.
Yeah,
and so that was something that, I mean, when I went to that first therapy session,
What did she say?
she said, you have a, this is maybe
In essence, yeah.
She said, you have a lot of anger in you. And I was like, no, I don't. Right. Because I was like, no, I don't. And she's like, and I've never seen this done in therapy. And I've talked to other therapists, but therapy, you can't read what a therapist thinks about something.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this normal? She pulled a wiffle ball bat out from like behind her. And she gave me the wiffle ball bat. And she was like, I want you to like have at it on this like couch. Like these pillows, like just go for it. And now I'm already doing comedy. And I'm like, I don't know if I can commit to this. Right. I don't like, I can't be like, I hate this. I felt performative and weird.
Yeah.
But.
And it's also like, I've seen this in movies.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what this is. And so I'm doing it, but I'm half-heartedly doing it. But in some way that like triggered me. I'm like, oh, I do have anger. I couldn't do that exercise, but even in not doing that exercise, it allowed me to start to like acknowledge it. And it was like how to find that balance of, modulating anger. It's like anger is okay. I can be at a 3. It was like, because I only went from like 0 to 10.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I can go to 0 to 3. And it took me a long time to even control, because I was like, I thought I could go to 0 to 3, but I just went to 10. Right. I got into a fight out here. I'm throwing pots at somebody's head, like a potted plants. I'm like,
what kind of fight was it?
It was like the landlord was being a dick to my wife, my ex-girlfriend, my wife now, and
you guys aren't.
And it was being a dick, and I got into it with him, and I fucking picked up a plant. I just fucking chucked it at his head, and I was like, oh shit. Like, and it got her kicked out of her place, because I was like, and that was me. Like, I'm still in my late 20s at that point. So I'm still trying to like wrestle it. It comes out in moments. It comes out in spurts. Like, so that was like, there's a period of time where it had no anger. Then there's a period of time where it was really spiky. And now I think I understand, look, I can get to a 10, and I have gotten to a 10, but it's a conscious choice to get to. I'm in control of the 10.
What did you think when you threw the pot?
I think it was hard for her. I think that because I was ultimately protecting her, it wasn't like I was in a drunk thing at a bar. It was a warranted conflict that I escalated to a degree that was not right. Yeah. But I also think that she gave me the benefit of the doubt too. Like, this is a rare thing. I'm not doing this all the time. I'm not a person who's angry.
Was there a lot of discussion afterward? Like, okay, what happened there?
I think there was like a little, like enough that it was like, but don't ever do that again, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, got it, right. And I'm not even, and at that point, I don't even think I have the words to say, oh, I'm modulating my anger. Like, I can look back on this now and say, yes, this is my journey.
Guys, this show was sponsored by BetterHelp. You want me to keep talking about therapy? Is that what you came here for? You came to the right place, dummy. What do you want your 2025 story to be? In 2025, maybe you're ready for a plot twist. Maybe there's a part of your story you've been wanting to revise. Anything good that happened in my life happened because of therapy and all the and mental health improvements. I've documented it. You've seen it. You've seen me change in front of you like a mediocre magic trick. I saw it too. I see it every day in the mirror. It's because of therapy and mental health stuff. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. Access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Write your story with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/NEAL today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/NEAL. How was it with like partnerships, like on Human Giant or?
That was always okay because I think it took me a long time to that was like the last part of my like evolution in that way, because I would always bend. I would bend and I would work with people. Like I love collaborating with people and I love working with people. I think where my issue with people in that sense is I have a little bit more like, I found out in my 40s, I have ADHD. I did not know that. Diagnosed myself first on Twitter, then got a professional diagnosis. But and what I realized was a lot of the conflicts I was getting into was because I was wanting people to work like my brain worked. And my brain doesn't work like, my brain works differently. And like, I might find people that I can partner with really well, but my brain is just a little differently wired. And I remember I got into, not a fight, but like a strong creative discussion with this writer who I love, who's a super talented guy. And he said to me, he's like, my brain does not work like your brain. And I was like, oh, and that was years before I diagnosed myself, before I got diagnosed. But it always stuck out to me. I was like, and that was like a big, oh, right. Like I am expecting people to, I'm multitasking. I'm doing certain things. I'm getting stuff done. I'm not dropping the ball. And I want people to just approach things the same way that I approach things.
Can you kind of tell people have ADHD on sight? I feel like I can tell.
I think I can.
Like I read it in one of the articles and I was like, yeah.
Right. And that's what my wife said. My wife said to me, like when I was like, I think I have ADHD. And she's like, of course.
Yeah.
I was like, well, why didn't I didn't know. Because I thought, again, it's like, I think it's a thing of, but I'm
Child
functioning.
Services came out to look at it. Like, no, he's good.
But you know what it is? But I think that this is like this thing. I pay my bills.
Yeah.
I got good grades in school. When I had to do professional things, I fucking showed up. I did the work. I got it done. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the way I kind of described myself was like, I was, like a building in New York City that has like that scaffolding up, like, and it never comes down. Like that was me. I had scaffolding that kept my building in check. And now I feel like that scaffolding is down and it was a lot of systems I had to put in place to make sure that I stayed in this thing.
How did you ease your own needs back into your life? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Like, how did you do that? Because that's a thing that I cannot figure out.
I'm trying to, I think there's a tendency to be very hard on myself, right? And to be like, I don't think that everything I do is, like, I'm not saying I'm doing the best work of anyone, but if I don't feel like it's the best work that I can do,
or just work-wise?
I can be very perfectionist in everything. Even if it's like, oh, I'm going to go play tennis with friends. I'm like, fucking didn't hit that serve. No one's thinking about it. But in my mind, I'm like, it's like, and so there's a part of me that is like, there's two parts. One, which is I'm going easier on myself. And I'm in a relationship, a very safe relationship with my wife that I've been in with. We've been together since like 2005. And we just had our 15th wedding anniversary, like where I can express it. And I think there's a part of me that I think about it like this. The young version of myself is often the one that reacts the most. It's like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to do these things, or I'm quick to anger. And I am now an adult. I have a life lived. I'm smarter than that younger version of myself. And I have to constantly kind of put that younger version of myself behind me and say, I got this. Like I am, and like, it's the way I kind of visualize it is like, I need to be the adult here and do it. And so I am easing my own self in, like, what do I want to do? How do I say it? And I can express it, and I can be disappointed, and I can, it's like, it's not always going to work out, but it's something that I'm constantly in a struggle to fully, like, it's like, I don't live a life where I don't care about what everybody else thinks. I'm just like, but I'm a little bit more conscious of putting myself forward, even if that means taking myself out of something. Like, and it's like this past weekend, I was depressed. I just like a couple, like a confluence of a couple things. It kind of just like took me out at the legs, and I was depressed. And in the past, I would have been like, it's fine, it's good. But I took whatever time that was, to just be depressed. Mm-hmm. And my wife was going out to do fun stuff, and I was like, I'm not going. I'm not gonna sit there and fake that I'm like into this. I'm not. And I sat at home. I was with my kids. I played video games. We watched movies. I was still depressed. I was so happy that I didn't go out. Like, I just needed to keep to myself.
I'm glad that you focus it on your kids and not
well,
adults.
But it was like because it's like, well, like I'm like almost in a safe space.
No, it's effort. It takes effort to be like put on a social performance where your kids, you can be like, Daddy's a little blue, and they go, oh, he's blue.
Right, and it's like I can sit there and play video games with them in NBA 2K, and they're not thinking like, oh, he's playing the Timberwolves differently than he normally plays, you know. It's like, but it's like, so that's where I'm trying to find, what do I want? What are the things I want to do? I'm a little bit more, not forceful, but I also don't need a full committee to say like, yes, I will do this. Like, if I just
you do need your wife though.
I do,
which in my experience is a pretty full committee.
Well, yeah,
not your wife in particular, but
no, like we make decisions together as a team, but we can disagree. And my wife is very good about like whenever something is bothering her, it's right there on the surface.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that so much. And I think that a big part of my growth is being with her, because early on, this is not in the book, but I knew that we would have a good relationship because I brought her to a party at a friend's house.
Puffy's house. Go ahead.
When my mom asked me, she's like, were you at any of those parties?
Were you at a freak off?
And I was like, no, I was at one of these parties. But we were out like on a friend's roof, and it was like relatively close after 9/11, like 3 or 4 years after 9/11. And someone told this joke, and everyone's laughing. And June was like, that's not funny. And you're all sitting around here laughing. Like that was a tragic thing. And I was like, right. But that was a funny joke. And she was like, I don't get this. And I was in this part of my life after going to therapy for a while where I was like, you know what? If this relationship doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I thought it was funny. And that was the first like fight we had over this dumb joke. I think it was good. I'm like, and I never released, I didn't make a mistake. I was like, I'm sorry that offended you. I thought it was funny. Yeah. And we got through it. And it was like, because I didn't care. I was like, if we break up, we break up. Like I was trying to have that energy. Like, and everything I did with June
she
was
started
like,
reading out the people who died at the World Trade Center, right? She had her laminated card and she would read out.
And I was like, oh no, but
by floor.
It was like, but like again, it's like, and the thing is like, she could be right and I could be right.
How long's the tension last?
It was like just a little bit of a fight on the phone. We were on the phone, like how like you're talking about, like, are we gonna see each other again? Like, what's going on? I didn't like that I was surrounded by all these people. They seemed callous, and the joke was very benign joke. But that was the beginning of our relationship, because it was my therapist like, don't placate in a relationship. Just be who you are. Like, be your voice. So that moment, like, started off my whole relationship with June started in honesty. So to get to your question that was forever ago, like I was like, this is me. This is where I'm at. And even when we met, I was like, I'm getting out of a breakup and this is where I'm at. Like I never hid anything from her, because it was like, I was under the assignment to just be me. Yeah. And there was I didn't have to be anything else, because like, if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. Because it's just like, and that was really freeing. And that was like the beginning of knowing, oh, I can do it. And look, that's our push and pull. June and I are very different people, but we also work so well together. And we get into these like little things, and it's just about finding that space and kind of bringing that out to everywhere. It's also about controlling anger, because this thing that kind of happened this past week pissed me off and was mad. And in the past, I would have written an email and been like, let me tell you something. This is fucked up. And I was like,
to the person that
did it. Yeah. And I didn't. And I was like, okay. And then conversely, something happened 2 weeks ago where, again, I would have gone ballistic. And I was angry, but not like out of control. I was like, this is not cool. I'm going to tell you why it's not cool. And what I found is when I use that voice of saying, I'm upset with this, and not with June, but with I'm upset. I didn't like this. And it's not with anger. People are like, whoa, calm down. I'm like, I'm so calm. I'm just being honest. And I feel like, and it's a really interesting thing, because I'm like, sometimes I feel like that conversation can't be had. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just saying like, I am let down by you, that you failed me in this moment, or I feel like this was a messed up thing. Whoa, hey, if that's what you feel, I'm like, but it's so funny, because I think I was used to that, or you see it like when people are yelling, hey, whoa, calm down. It's like,
I also think the people that are the object of the rejection or the scorn or use it as a weapon for advantage. Like, well, if you're going to yell, dude, first of all, I don't think I'm yelling.
Yeah.
You're making it this thing where you're limiting a huge chunk of human expression. You're just rendering it. No, we're not accepting that. Why not?
And it's like, because I am upset and I can be upset, but people don't like to be in that position of being upset. And it's somebody who also knows, like, I don't like to rock the boat. So like I think I'm learning how to rock the boat in a nice way. I'll tell you the worst thing I ever did. Well, not the worst thing, but this is a pretty, all right. So I had worked on this show. This is terrible. I worked on this show and I got kind of hosed because I was supervising the show. And that was all I was supposed to do, supervise the show. And there was a head writer, but they budgeted it out so that the head writer left before post started, right? So then it was like, I have to do all of post. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not even getting paid that much. I'm getting paid a I'm like, like this guy, right? You know, and
send me something.
Right. I'll look at cuts. I'll do, I don't need to be in the room or in 3 edit rooms simultaneously. And I was like mad. And I had a similar contract to some other people. And they were like, well, they won't do it. And so it was like, well, you have to. Because I was the lowest person on that rung. Yeah. I'm like, but we're all getting paid the same, right? So I was like, then have them give me their money or something. I was upset. And this lawyer was being really confrontational with me. So I got a box of condoms and I wrapped them up and I hired a delivery person with a note card. And I said, I hand delivered it to his office via like a messenger. The card said, next time you fuck me, use these. And when I tell you the reverberations that sent through like this very polite, and like I got calls from every person on my team.
Didn't even know.
Like they were like, hey, wait, are you okay? Or I was like, and part of me was like, that's funny. It's a bit. You fuck me. So I'm mad. And this is a clever way for me to tell you, go fuck off, instead of writing an angry email that didn't go over well. It was like, and I mean, look, and like I could see how that is a very aggressive
out
move.
Here. That's a hate crime. In LA, in Hollywood, that's you cannot get upset in any kind of way. You just have to say it's great, right, in a different tone.
Right. It's just like, and that was like, so it was so like, it was like, this guy was a big lawyer and had it was a big deal. And I didn't realize it because I'm also, not that I'm like, hey, I'm from New York, but I saw it differently. But I was like, oh, I got to check myself sometimes too. Like, cause I
love it,
you know, and it was,
well, do you like the party that's like that? Cause I think it's
I like it in moderation.
Admirable.
I think like, to me, it's like, can I just control it? And that's being able to control my anger means like, I'm not having somebody step all over me. And I'm also not out of control. And I think that if I can be in those two spots and I can modulate, and if I can work between 1 and 9, ultimately, I'm happy because I can get to 9 and I should get to 9. And that's not wrong. And I can be forceful. I can stick up for myself. But there was a lack of control there that I didn't have. It's like that. And that's when I would start to feel bad about myself. It's like I became the Hulk. I was like, oh, what did I do? Like, what did I fucking do? Like, I knew I sent that guy condoms. Is it the best thing? No. Is it super aggressive? Did I think it through? No. But I'm not like, in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, yeah, that was dumb. But I'm not mad at it.
It's just like a bad bit.
Right.
But it doesn't seem hostile.
But they were like, this is the most aggressive thing. Yeah.
What?
And so, and so that's how I feel like it's about like embracing anger and embracing my own wants and needs, and also sticking up for myself and saying like, this is how I feel and it's okay. Make room for these feelings, make room for this thing. And that's a hard thing to do when you've spent a lifetime not doing it. In this business also, you're built not to. Like, people don't want you to make, like, people don't, like, this thing that went on. I've been working on this project.
The condom project?
The condom project.
Uh-huh.
No, this is a different one. I've been working on this project for like 8 months with a person, and nothing had changed in the creative, and we were fully financed and everything was going, and we're like ready to shoot. And this person just pulled out, and with no explanation, like nothing had changed. But no one ever told us. We only heard it through an intermediary. and I was fucking mad, right? Like that anger of like,
You did the Long Island accent. for
yeah.
fucking-
And I was fucking mad.
But how do I deal with this in a way that's actually productive? You know, it's like, that's what, like, it's like, I can be mad. I can make room for being upset, and I can make room for, I'm not just be like, okay, it's no big deal. You know, it's like, and I felt like I never felt comfortable having emotions, but LA is a town that like this so much so this person doesn't even tell me in an email, doesn't tell me face to face. And that's this whole town is like, you have to like, it's about avoiding conflict at all costs.
Yeah.
It's when you add any conflict into anything, it's like, whoa, hey, are you okay? It's like, yeah, but yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm just, but I'm having a conversation with you that is confronting an issue that you don't want to talk about. Every time I ever talk to people about like, oh, but you said you were going to do that and you didn't do it, I feel like you're being passive aggressive. I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah, like
being I'm just.
Yeah, you can hit them with a "you're gaslighting me."
Yeah.
There's like you can throw some jargon at them, and
right, and it's like this thing where you're just it's increasingly difficult to find your anger in a world in which anger is not really accepted or allowed.
No,
you know?
yeah,
Like
it's
that's,
not.
You
It
know,
really isn't.
and so I think it's like trying to find that and harness it in a way that's acceptable in this community, but then also bring it into my life the right way, and you know, personally and all that sort of stuff.
And it's something give yourself a grade.
I would say like I'm actually pretty happy with where I'm at, because I would say I'm like an A- on it, because I know what I like. There's been moments where I'm like, no, I like that. I'm pulling myself back from that. I don't like that. I'm speaking like I am. And again, having kids, not that this is not the be all and end all, but for me, this all is a culmination of a lot of things, right? Being a kid who I also gave myself some forgiveness, which I think is a different thing. Like when you're kind of in an abusive relationship, I think you think, I don't want to rock the boat. And when you have kids, you're like, oh, I'm looking at this kid who's right now older than I was when we left, right? So it's like, oh my God, like he's just a kid. Like I gave myself my own forgiveness too. And so
because you still harbored a little bit like, man, maybe
I should have done this, and I could have done some things different. So I think it's like now I understand like what I have my own like ways of that I want to be, and if I can't be that way, like I know, like I'm not making those bigger mistakes. I don't take it out on my kids. I know how to talk to my kids. I know how to listen to my kids, but I also know how to be a firm parent. I also know I can yell at my kids. I'm not going to yell at my kids, but I also know where like yelling stops. And, you know, like I'm also trying to find that balance of like, where does it actually make a difference? Like my son did the dumbest thing of all. My son he's a really
send condoms to a lawyer.
Yes, but his handwriting is so bad he could barely read it. So it did look a little bit more threatening. It looked like a note from 7.
He cut it out. Yeah.
He's like a funny kid, and he'll do anything for a laugh. And so they were like, "Wouldn't it be funny if you poured water all over the engine for the bouncy house that was like at school?" So he walked, went right over, poured water in, and the bouncy house collapsed with all the kids inside of it, and this thing went down. And I think there's one version of that going like, how dare you do that? Blah, 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 blah. I'm yelling at you. And I think what I've realized too is like, once you start yelling at a kid, it's click, it's off, right? Like, you're feeling like you're getting something out. They're not getting anything.
Yeah.
And so it is like, I'm upset with you. You did something that was wrong. Can we talk about what, like, and they may not be able to articulate why they did it or what they wanted to do.
The other thing I've seen with kids is you don't know why. They don't know why they did it. 100%. And he doesn't know how an engine works.
That's the thing. It's like, so when you yell at them and go, oh, they don't understand. So it's like, I'd rather take that time to be like, don't put water and electric together. Like that's really, the lesson I'm trying to teach you here is you didn't even understand that this is a option. Like he wasn't like, I'm going to short circuit the engine and make the castle collapse. You don't fucking know what he's doing. And you're right. And that's the thing. And this goes even back to like centering my kids over me, which is like, I'm always asking like, what are you feeling right now? Because I know what I'm feeling about something and I can bring my own shit to them. And it's like, it's not about me. It's about you. Like, what are you feeling right now? And that has been like, I don't always do it. I try to, but I want to know where they're at, because oftentimes where they're at is way it's way easier to deal with than like me adding like another layer. Like it's almost like, oh, are you upset because X, Y, and Z? And they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Like you've made it worse in a way, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like with my kids, I'm just trying to like, where are you at? Where are you at? And the simplest version of this I can say is like, my son was like, I can't sleep in my bed. I can't sleep in my bed. It's the worst. It's the worst. I got to sleep in your bed. And I was like, no, you don't. You don't have to sleep in my bed. I was mad. I was like, you sleep in your own bed. And then I like sat there and I was like, wait a second. I was like, what is he saying? He's like, my bed hurts me. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're in a bunk bed. This is the mattress that came with the bunk bed, probably like IKEA mattress. That mattress sucks. I'm gonna get you a new mattress. And got him a new mattress. And I got him this thing. And now he loves his bed. And it's like, but like my instinct was like, it's fine. It's a bed. You're going to be fine.
It's also, I was talking to someone about this the other day, where you tell a kid to do something, they don't do it. And then you're mad because they're like, this is a character thing.
Right.
Where he's not going to respect it. And it made me empathize with cops.
I get
where
it.
They're just banging someone and they don't even remember what the original crime was. They just know the guy didn't stop resisting the minute he didn't follow a vague a course of action of like stop resist. So you want me to fall down onto my face? Like,
right.
And then they're just beating him because he disobeyed them about a thing they weren't even that passionate about to begin with.
And I think that's like the trick of it is like kind of like you have to look at each situation individually. I think that's hard for this is in all walks of life. It's like, yeah, I know how this is going to go down. Like, oh, you didn't listen to me. You didn't clean up the bedroom. You didn't do this thing. And I think it goes across all of, and it's like the minute the pattern is broken, you go right into that old cycle of like, this is all right. This is a problem.
I got to teach him.
I got to do this
is
thing.
Going to be a problem. Yeah,
and
I'm almost irresponsible not to beat him.
Right. It's like I think that there is like, and then I think that's the. But the hard thing is to sit down and to stop and be like, wait, hold on, because it's also like fights. Like you ever get into a fight with the person you're in a relationship with, you're like, what are we fighting about? Like, why are we here now? Like, it's like it spirals so quickly that sometimes it's like now I'm bringing up
fight.
Yeah, it's like and so I think it's like just kind of respecting the moments, which are like, again, that's where I'm not saying I'm perfect at that. I'm aware of it. I try to be aware of it. I try to walk it back and be like, what are we doing? What are we really?
You know what's funny? Talking to you, I've always seen the ADD.
Right.
But now I see the anger. Like I can see you beating somebody up.
Right.
Like I can picture you losing your temper in a way that like I couldn't.
Right.
I wasn't aware I saw it, but I could see it.
I think, but it's like I think it's a sort of like we all have these issues. We all like. I think that's what I love about your show too. It's like we all have these things that like these trigger points, these things, these blocks, these things that like, and I think we can examine them. We don't have to always fix them. I know that they exist.
Right.
Right. And I think that's almost more powerful in a way, because like when you identify like, wait, I'm reacting like this because of this other thing. Like, and it's like, if you can check yourself out of that moment, that's the most powerful thing that you can do.
I'm almost looking forward to death so I know what I didn't do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I never punched whatever. Like I'm so glad all the stuff I was so like, you better, all the things I was like the shoulds, and then finally I was like, oh, I didn't, I kind of won.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Like, I think that this is like a very like, and look, I think I don't think everybody needs to go to therapy, but I think what everybody does need to do is do self-examination on some level, whatever that comes with. If that's reading and that opens up your mind to something, if that is meditating, if that's working out, like there needs to be like self-reflection. And I feel like that's the biggest thing I've learned from all of this is like, I just have to be aware and also be open to looking stupid and knowing what I don't, and being open to being taught. And I try to take classes because of that too. I'm like, I take a class. I took a stand-up class. Because I was like, oh, I've never done this, and this is gonna make me super uncomfortable. And I have no desire to necessarily do stand up.
No, just none.
Yeah, so anyway,
No.
all right, so I'm married. Right. And it was like, but I knew it would be like a challenge for me to put me in a position where it's like, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. And I like that feeling of going out of my comfort zone. Like I took a clown class one time. Like I'm like, these are the things I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do that. I did this amazing spiritual retreat. That was one of the most transformative things that I've done. And it was no drugs that are involved in anything, but it was just like this this like very physical and breathing and all that sort of stuff. And it was like, I saw myself in two zones. I was like, I saw the comedian part of myself going like, this is stupid. And why am I doing this? And this person probably charlatan. And what am I? And then I saw like, well, you already spent the money. You're already here. Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
And I just leaned into that, and I had such a better time. And I feel like that's what I'm trying to also like allow myself to do. Is I think sometimes I get so protective. I'm like, I don't want to put myself in a position where I could feel or look stupid. And that's why sometimes eating shit on stage is like a great moment. It's like, okay, yeah. Sucks.
Anyone can get sniped.
Yeah. And it's like, and so I feel like that's the way I kind of try to do it. I had a great time in that class. It was hard as shit. I had moments where I felt really good. I had moments where I felt like total dog shit. But it's like, I think it's almost like balancing your mind or working out with your mind a little bit. Like
I think one of the things you're saying is like not assuming you're right.
Yes.
It's the analogy that has been coming up in the past few minutes is like it's a bit like Memento where we wake up.
Okay, so what am I doing? Oh, I'm chasing this guy. No, he's chasing me.
Like what am I like? I'm 30?
Yeah.
Okay. And what are my habits? I don't want to do a lot of this.
Yeah.
And then slowly trying to undo it despite another part of ourselves that's fighting to hold on to these things.
Well, because it's like it's safe to hold on to it. It's like
to
get to the next.
I
guess to continue this like a metaphor, it's like if you're climbing a mountain, like at some point you have to let go of the thing that's holding you in to grab to the next part, and there's going to be like a split second where you have nothing, or you're like, or you're off balance. But that's the growth that you need to get to the next level, and I feel like. And however you can activate that in yourself. And I think for me, it's been relationships, it's been working challenges, it's been like, and then sometimes it's like manufactured things. It's like, take this class, be fucking uncomfortable in this class. Like
How long ago was this?
3 weeks ago.
The stand-up class?
Yeah, took a 10-week class. Like, so it's like, but that's like, but I like, and it was like, oh, this is like, it's fine. It's like, it's fine and it's hard, but it's like, but that's like that. I think it's like trying to keep myself off balance in a way, like to even like learning a sport. I never played sports. I was terrible at sports, and I'm like learned how to play tennis, and I've like really focused on that, and I've gotten like okay at tennis.
Yeah.
Like, and that's exciting. It's like, oh, I would never even allow myself to do it, but it's like I'm putting myself in a position. I'm in my 40s and I'm fucking hitting a ball, and everyone else is way better than me.
Yeah, a lot of times I've made fun of myself where I'm like the old granny who goes back to college.
Yeah, right.
Like, she's an undergrad who was supposed to, for the first time, it was 1961. And then cut to a photo of her, and she's like, I'm just learning. I fuck with that lady.
Yeah, I think it's like, and that's why I have a lot more respect for rapping grandma, because rapping grandma is like, hey, look, I'm seeing what the culture's doing. I'm gonna start rapping.
Is this from The Wedding Singer?
Hip hop, a hippie to the hip hop.
Oh, I mean, I felt I grew up only with rapping grandmas, like on every like Star Search.
If you needed to close a trailer or commercial,
yeah, you got to put the rapping grandma on there, hip to the hip to the hip to the hop. But yeah, like I think you're right. Like, I also think it's like a sign of like wanting to learn is also like, it's so rare as adults that we put ourselves in a position where we're like, oh, I'm not the smartest person in the room. And I think the smartest people in the room often say the least sometimes, right? It's like, and that's a hard thing to remember too. It's
just don't be attached to yourself.
Right. There's a great thing that I love, and this is way off topic, but it's a Hanna-Barbera thing that when they would write cartoons, they would have this rule. It's like, we can't shoot down ideas. We can only pitch ideas. And when they would pitch ideas, they would say that the bad ideas would just sink to the bottom and the good ideas would float to the top. And it was I always think about that, like in a writer's room, like don't spend all that time saying why something doesn't work.
Yeah.
Just be like, all right, great. What was it? Okay. Like add to it, don't add to it, but don't say it's bad. And I worked with Marta Kaufman recently.
She did Friends.
And she
Killed Matthew Perry. Go ahead. Not cutting it out.
She has like a rule, which is like, if you like, as long as you can pitch a replacement, everything is on the table. Like just right, but you can't just say I don't like that.
Right.
And it's a great way to be. It's like the replacement may not work, but it's like I think that's like an energy that I really respond to. It's like, yeah, like, okay, let me just like, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do this. And maybe that idea will spur into something else. But I think that we spend so much time saying, no, that won't, instead of being like, well, if I'm forced to have to deal with this, let me see if I can actually fix it. Let me see if I can actually articulate how to make that idea better, which is, I think it's easier to say no and try to restart from scratch instead of like working with what you have.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool that you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm trying.
And now we're going to cut to 5 minutes of Paul's stand-up. It was great talking to you.
It was a blast.
so
Oh my
great
gosh,
talking.
so good. It was a blast.
Great to see you, buddy.
I love it. Thank you guys so much.